A game of Risk, and the G.I. Joe is gone. After breakfast, I still had no luck with the box. There was nothing to do that day. I didn't have any chores to do. I didn't want to go to Gabrielle's. I would go tomorrow, after she had a while to think about my little present. I didn't want to go to Pete's because I had been there yesterday, and he probably wasn't going to send any messages that day anyway. Besides, you can't milk the free candy too much, or even someone like Pete's mom will get sick of seeing you. That was one of the things my dad had taught me. Don't wear out your welcome. I wasn't going to fix Catherine's chair either. I was still upset with her, but anyway, I'd have to wait until she was gone at one of her friends' houses. If I didn't, she'd probably come snooping around the workshop in the cellar and find out I had switched it. So I decided to go to Jeff's house and see if we could play video games. He had a PlayStation 2 and a bunch of games. Mostly we played Mortal Kombat. When I got to his house, he was in the middle of a game of Final Fantasy X, but he was glad to see me. His mother had a strict 1-hour time limit on games, but in practice, that got reset if I came over. Naturally, the hour went by in a flash, but even when time was up, we could finish whatever game we were on. When we were on overtime like that, we referred to it as girl play, not gameplay, because we would go easy on each other in those last rounds to stretch it out. But then the axe finally fell, and we had to think of something to do. We went to walk around the backyard, which abutted some town land. "What happened with that box?" said Jeff. "I got it open, but it was weird. Catherine threw something into it and it snapped shut. Now it won't open." "That is weird. Can I try?" "Let's go later. Maybe it'll work then." I found out something about that house. It was a drug house. Seriously? Yes, meth. I heard my parents talking about it, and then they had to tell me. "Why did it burn?" "When they make it, they cook stuff somehow, and since they're all drugged up, they mess up and set the house on fire." We went back there for another look. We didn't find anything special, but we could make a lot more sense out of the scene. The tables and camp stoves were in the living room because that was the biggest room. This time, we found a couple flashlights in a cabinet that had escaped the flames. "Shouldn't there be some needles?" I said. "They don't have needles for meth," said Jeff. "Oh, I bet that box was buried here before. Who used to live here?" "No idea." "Why would they leave it?" "Imagine that it was there that whole summer, that this was our clubhouse." We went around the woods for a while longer, then went back to Jeff's house. Without video games, we resorted to Risk. We just set it up on the dining room table and played the first round. I was in South America and had most of North America. Jeff was in Africa and Australia. The rest was up for grabs. I was pretty sure I'd win. If I crushed North Africa, he'd be on the back foot big time. Then we went to my house to try the box. Jeff wanted to try it first, and I let him. Why not, I thought. He couldn't do it, so I sat down again with my arms on the desk on each side. "Let me concentrate," I said. I sat and focused, then tried to open it, and it worked the first time. "I think it only opens up once a day," I said. "Didn't it open this morning?" "Like probably every half day." The top glided slowly open, and we looked in. There was nothing there. "Catherine," I yelled, rushing downstairs to where she was in the TV room. "What happened to that G.I. Joe?" "I don't know." "You opened the box." "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did," I yelled, approaching her. "Mommy!" That did it. I gave her a quick Indian sunburn, which made her cry. "Cam, go to your room." My mom went over to console Catherine. I stomped up the stairs and heard as Mom asked Jeff to go home. Then she talked to Catherine, who told her lies. Then she came upstairs and made me tell her the story. By then I had closed the box, but I had to tell her about it. She confiscated it and put it away in her bedroom closet. I got no more TV and could only come out for dinner. And I had to apologize to Catherine. I scowled at her and had to do it 3 times before my mother okayed it. The only reason she did is because that time I actually was sorry. I could tell Catherine had not opened the box. Her lower lip quivered, but she did not cry. That G.I. Joe had disappeared all by itself. Mowing the damn lawn. The next morning I stared at the ceiling for a long time. I was going to have to mow that damn lawn. I sat up on my elbow and assessed the growth. Being July, it was still growing fast, but I could probably push it out another day or two. On the other hand, I would be better off getting something done to appease my mother. Breakfast was quiet. Catherine stared at me dumbly, and I made faces at her when my mom wasn't looking. She complained about it, but this time Mom went against her and told her to just ignore me. She said it with a sigh, without looking up from her plate. I think that was the first time I saw that an adult could get frustrated and not want to deal with something. All she wanted to do was get through breakfast. I still don't know if that made me think my mother didn't love me or if it just put me in my place. But things were not solely about right and wrong or a just outcome anymore. The little things my sister and I used against each other were irrelevant to winning the war. They were just tactics. To think how many times I had been told the world isn't fair, how many times I had been praised for soldiering on even though Dad had been taken away, how many times I had been admonished not to be petty. It took that little sigh, that slight turn of her head, the frown to make me see that this struggle was the abiding story of our family, of my life, and of anyone's life. And strangely, it made me feel at one with my fellow man more than any hug or kind word had ever done. We were all combatants, sometimes shoulder to shoulder, sometimes face to face, but all, ultimately, alone. I removed myself from the table and went to the barn to get the mower started. Set, focus, pull. My angel. I did half the job. It was already hot by then, and in a way, I thought I might get double points for doing it on 2 separate days. I told my mom we were going to need more gas soon, and then went to shoot leaves with my slingshot from behind the barn. At one point, I saw Catherine staring at me from my bedroom window. I gave her the finger. Then she picked up my summer reading book, which had sat untouched on my bedside table all summer, and waved it around. Disgusted, I went into the woods where I couldn't see her. Soon it was almost time for lunch, and I went inside to tell my mom I would go to Gabrielle's for lunch. I could tell she was relieved, and that she bucked herself up to wish me a nice afternoon there. I brought the slingshot because Gabrielle liked shooting it too, and when I got to her house, her mother was just getting food ready and had a lunch for me too. Gabrielle came down the stairs, concealing something in her hands, and sat at the table, kitty corner from me. She brought her hand up from her lap and placed the little chair in front of her. "Look what I found on my porch." "Wow," I said. "Where did that come from?" "I don't know. I think it was an angel." "Are you sure it wasn't Santa?" "No. This was a big handsome angel that flies with the speed of lightning." A truck rumbled past at just that moment. "Is that the angel's thunder?" "No, this angel is never heard. He comes silently. Sometimes he might be right in front of you and you'd never know it." I turned my head down with embarrassment, smiling. "It must be an angel who will do anything for you." "It's an angel who I would do anything for." Gabrielle's mother interrupted with our plates, bologna sandwiches and potato chips. Gabrielle and I talked about her garden, and I asked her about the summer reading book. "I already read it." "I knew you would." "What was it about?" "A girl who's the fastest one in the 5th grade." "Why are they making us read it if we're going into the 6th grade?" "I don't know. They think we're stupid." "She makes friends with this boy." "That's it?" "No, they have like this imaginary world they call Terabithia." I forgot that word as soon as I heard it. "What happens?" "Nothing, really. They just kind of hang out. can't tell you the end. Why not? Because it's a secret. She shut her eyes for a long second and then looked up at me from under her brow. That made me smile. She said, "We have to read 2 other books, you know." "Don't remind me." "But you like reading." "Sure, but not about little silly girls with imaginary palaces." "I never said palaces." "I heard it, though." "What was it like?" "I hated it." "Thanks, Gabrielle. That's encouraging." I helped her with her garden. It was the time of summer where you just had to weed it and keep it going. You could already see some growth, especially from the tomatoes. Eventually, we went to shoot with a slingshot. She had some cans, and we used my metal pellets for them, not just the random pebble. You could drive a pellet right through both sides of the can with the right aim and a good pull. The sound of the cans when they got hit was awesome. When we went to set the cans up again after a round of firing, Gabrielle said we should go into the woods to see if there was a stream there. "There's no stream," I said. "We'll pretend." That's what happens in the book. They just pretend there's this whole world there. I didn't see why I should say no. We went in a ways. In that book, they make themselves king and queen of Terabithia. Okay. They have a marriage, but it's not a real marriage. How so? They never kiss. Why not? I don't know. She turned to me and said, "Have you ever kissed a girl?" I felt like a big hand grabbed me around the chest. I didn't want to admit no, but I also didn't want her to think I had another girlfriend. "We're boyfriend and girlfriend," she said. We had said that all the way back at Christmas. I remembered that my mom usually smiled at me when I came over here because she couldn't believe we still had said the same thing after 6 months. She stood there and shut her eyes. My heart raced. Really picked up so quickly I thought it would break out of my chest and I would faint. I decided I better do something, and I leaned forward and kissed her. I finally knew what people meant when they said they saw stars. She opened her eyes and smiled. I stepped back and smiled, overjoyed and flushed. She was blushing too. "I love you," I said, hardly able to believe I had said it, but it wasn't a lie. "I love you too." She took my hand, and we started walking back to her house. Suddenly, I blurted out, "I found this weird box yesterday. It's like a Chinese box that's impossible to open." I gushed out the whole story and how the G.I. Joe had disappeared. "That's impossible," she said. "I know, I don't get it. But keep it a secret," I said. She agreed. I said, "No, really, a serious secret until I could figure out more." She swore she wouldn't tell. Back at her house, we looked at her dollhouse for a while. She had a little man with clothes made by my father, and she said, "Here's Cam coming home. He kisses his wife, Gabrielle." I giggled and I felt warm inside. Finally, my mom called her house to have me come back for dinner. Bad news. The next day, I finished the lawn. I wanted to go to Pete's, but I thought I should finish first. It just seemed fitting to finish the job before I went there. I found a stick and started my usual genocide of the flies as I went down the street. I passed Gabrielle's house but didn't look up. If she saw me, she would know where I was going, but if I saw her, I'd probably go inside. I was most of the way there when a car caught my attention. It was a black sedan. Nothing unusual, but there were 3 men in it. That wasn't too usual. I don't know why I focused on that, but most cars just had 1 or 2 people in them, and if anyone was in back, it was a kid. And it seemed like they were all about the same age, all black hair, and all showing blue shoulders above the level of the doors. It was not driving fast. I saw it slow down at Pete's house, then go slowly up the driveway. I started figuring out what was going on just about then, and I sped up my pace. The 3 men got out, all wearing uniforms. They were green, not blue, in fact. They placed military hats on carefully and strode evenly to the door, saying nothing. I saw one of them ring the bell. By now, I was running up the dirt driveway. I can still remember dust getting in my teeth and eyes, chalking them as I dampened my mouth and blinked my eyes. They didn't notice me behind them. Pete's mom came to the front door, and she knew immediately what was happening. The men spoke in low tones and presented her with the flag. They were not hurried, and they were not pushy, although they offered to go inside. "Thank you," she whispered. "Master Sergeant Waltz will be contacting you tomorrow at your convenience," said one of the men. "This is his card." The men turned and went down the steps. One of them stopped in front of me. "Are you his brother?" I didn't answer. I was starting to pant, and I could feel my eyes watering up. He put his hand on my shoulder. He was a good man. He served his country proudly. In his last moments, he was shoulder to shoulder with his friends. Tears ran down my cheeks, and I turned to Pete's mom, her image swimming distorted as I blinked. I ran to her and hugged her, hard. We stood there for a few minutes, listening to the men close the doors, start the engine, back up to turn around, and then go solemnly down the driveway and back to where they came from. She took me inside, where she showed me an email that Pete had sent me. He told me about the last few days, and then he gave me a tongue twister. I've always wondered if it was something prophetic or something meaningful. I've spent years being of one opinion and then the other. "Hey, Cammy, we've been doing a lot of driving around out here. Hot as... Can't tell you, that's Marine slang. Not fit for tender ears. One IED blew up by Hondo's Humvee, but no one was injured. There was a firefight, though. Couldn't see anyone, but there was a lot of shooting. Typical day at the office. Now, see if you can say this 10 times fast. Shrouded soldiers shrug their shoulders. Shrouded soldiers shrug their shoulders. Hang in there, bud. Pete." Shrouded shoulders. Was that a premonition? It's always bothered me. And did shrug their shoulders mean he didn't care? Even with what I know now, I still can't tell. Pete's mom said she needed to call her sister. But I'm glad you were here, Cam. You were very special to him. Are very special to him. And to me. I'm glad I wasn't left alone with the flag. She sniffed. "I think I'll be gone for a few days. You'll feed the dog, will you?" Yeah, of course." She gave me a house key, and I went back to the road. There were no cars, and all I heard was my soles slapping the pavement. I slowed down to quiet the noise. So this is what it's like to be all alone, I thought. Gabrielle's house came into view, and I tried to walk past without looking up at the windows. I didn't want her to see me cry. I just wanted to get home and lie face down on my bed. This time, she wouldn't let me pass. "Cam?" she said from one of the windows. A car went by at the same time, and I pretended not to hear. After a few seconds, I heard her jogging up behind me. She slowed to my pace and walked beside me, glancing sideways every few seconds. After a couple of minutes, she said, "It's Pete, isn't it?" I burst out crying instantaneously, and she put her arm around my back and pulled herself in front of me to hug me with both arms. I was not humiliated. I was just glad she was there, that I could smell her hair and hug her back. She started to cry too, and we stood half in the road with cars going by, I don't know how long. "Let me go home with you," she said. We walked with our arms around each other's waists. When we got to my house, there was something in her expression and in my demeanor, my head sagging and my cheeks red. that explained to my mother what had happened. "Oh, Cam," she said. Then she came to hug me. It's strange to say, but a little part of me was getting bored with all the hugs. "I think I just want to go upstairs," I said. "Let me go too," said Gabrielle. At the top of the stairs, out of sight of my mom, she said, "I love you," and kissed me. I couldn't really kiss back, but it made me feel better. A lot better. "Come in and sit with me," I said. We went in and lay on my bed next to each other. She had her head on my shoulder. My right arm was around her, and we lay looking at the ceiling for a long time. I was calm, and I felt strong. I was glad that I didn't cry myself to sleep.